Poor single mom gave Korean Mafia boss her last $18. The next day, 5 SUVs surrounded her house. Amara clutched her last $18. It was an insane, completely insane thing to do. An hour ago, she'd been fired, framed for a theft she didn't commit. Now, this crumpled handful of bills was the only thing standing between her 7-year-old son, Kai, and an empty stomach for dinner. But the man beside her at the bus stop kept recounting his own meager collection of coins, his hands trembling with a desperation she knew all too well. She couldn't just sit there and watch him suffer. So, she gave him the money. All of it. With tears in his eyes, the stranger thanked her and boarded the bus. Amara began the long walk home, a knot forming in her stomach as she tried to figure out how she would explain to Kai why there was nothing to eat. The following morning, a sharp knock echoed through their small apartment. When Amara opened the door, her heart stopped. 5 gleaming black SUVs were parked along the street, and from them emerged men in sharp, dark suits. Walking towards her, with an air of immense power, was the man from the bus stop. He was dressed in an impeccably tailored black Mafia suit with a crisp white collared shirt, looking like he could buy and sell the entire city without a second thought. "We need to talk," he said, his voice calm but firm. Amara knew in that moment that her life would never be the same. She hadn't eaten since the previous morning, and the gnawing hunger had long since faded into a dull ache. As she walked the darkened streets, the events of the day replayed in her mind. The smug look on her manager's face, the way her co-worker refused to meet her gaze, the termination papers sliding across the desk. "We have multiple witnesses who saw you take the money, Amara." She had never stolen a thing in her life, but it was her word against 2 liars. The flickering light of the bus stop came into view, and she sank onto the bench, exhausted. Her thoughts drifted to Kai, her sweet, trusting son, with his bright smile and his drawings of their little family. How could she tell him she had failed? A man sat down beside her, his breathing shallow and panicked. He was in his late 30s, his clothes worn and frayed. His hands shook as he counted a small pile of change, his face falling with each count. "Excuse me," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but do you have any spare change? I'm short for the bus fare." Amara looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw the tear tracks on his cheeks and the same desperate glaze in his eyes that she had seen in her own reflection. She opened her wallet.
$18.
It was everything she had. Giving it to him meant a 4-mile walk home and an empty pantry for breakfast. But she couldn't turn away. She held out the money. "Here, take it." He stared at the bills as if they were a lifeline. "I can't. That's too much." "Please," Amara insisted. "Just take it." His hands trembled as he accepted the money. "I don't know what to say. Thank you isn't enough." "It's okay," she said, though it was anything but. "I'm Jean," he said, wiping his eyes. "I promise I'll pay you back." Amara simply nodded, not believing him. People in desperate situations made promises they couldn't keep. The bus arrived, and Jean boarded, leaving her alone under the dim streetlight. Kai was asleep when she finally got home. Her neighbor, Mrs. Gable, had given him dinner. She was one of the few kind souls left in Amara's life. Standing in Kai's doorway, watching him sleep, Amara whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby." She didn't sleep that night, just sat at her small kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid bills. The knock came at 8 a.m. and Amara opened the door to a sight that stole her breath. 5 black SUVs lined her street. Men in expensive suits stood by the vehicles, their expressions unreadable. Walking up her cracked sidewalk was Jean, the man from the bus stop. He was no longer the picture of desperation but a figure of immense power, dressed in a sharp, black Mafia suit and a pristine white collared shirt. He was clearly a powerful Korean Mafia boss. "Hello, Amara," he said. She could only stare, acutely aware of her worn clothes and the shabbiness of her apartment. "Who are all those people?" Kai asked from behind her, his eyes wide. Jean crouched down to Kai's level.
"Hello, I'm Yin."
"I'm a friend of your mom's." "You look like a superhero," Kai said in awe. Jean smiled, then turned his attention back to Amara. "Last night, I was robbed," he explained quietly. "They took everything." My car, my phone, my wallet. Left me stranded, he paused, his gaze intense. I run an organization. A powerful one. Someone close to me set me up, wanting me vulnerable. They almost succeeded. I don't understand, Amara said, her head spinning. Why are you telling me this? Because, Jean said, his eyes locking with hers. When I had nothing, you, a complete stranger, gave me everything you had. It was $18. It was everything, Jean corrected. And now I want to know why you did it. Amara sank onto her couch. I don't know. You look like you were barely hanging on, and I know what that feels like. I couldn't just walk away. Even though you had just lost your job, Jean stated. It wasn't a question. I do my research, Amara. I know you were framed. I know you're raising your son alone, he leaned forward. Tell me what happened. The entire story spilled out of her. The struggle to provide for Kai, the lies that cost her her job. Jean listened intently. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. I need someone I can trust, he finally said. Someone with integrity, who does the right thing even when it costs them everything. Come work for me, Amara. I am a powerful mafia boss, and I can give you the second chance you gave me. You're offering me a job? She asked, incredulous. A real one, he confirmed, with a salary that will let you take care of Kai the way he deserves. I'm not doing this out of pity. I'm doing it because you showed me who you are, and that's exactly the kind of person I need in my organization. Amara looked at her son, then back at the formidable mafia boss offering her a lifeline. Okay, she said. Yes, I'll do it. Jean smiled, a genuine, warm smile this time. Good. Because we have a lot of work to do. Amara's first day felt like stepping into another world. Jin's headquarters was a discreet, high-security building that hummed with quiet authority. People moved with a sense of purpose, their loyalty to the Korean mafia boss palpable. Amara, in her simple dress, felt out of place. Jean met her in the lobby. Ignore the stares, he said quietly. They don't know your strength. Come. He led her to a conference room where a stern-looking man sat reviewing documents. This is Min-jun, my most trusted advisor, Jean said. Min-jun, this is Amara. She's going to help us. Min-jun looked her up and down, his skepticism clear. With all due respect, boss, what are her qualifications? She is someone I trust, Jean said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. That is more valuable than anything right now. They explained the situation. Jean had been lured to a meeting by his second-in-command, a man named Kwon. It was an ambush. Jean had escaped, but Kwon had taken control of a significant portion of his operations, using the chaos to steal money and resources. Kwon reported me missing, presumed dead, Jean said, his voice laced with cold anger. He was very concerned, very helpful. You think Kwon set you up? Amara asked. I know he did, Jean said. But I need proof before I move against him. If I'm wrong, I start a war within my own family. He slid a folder across the table. This is everything we have. Financial records, communications, surveillance reports. I need you to look at it with fresh eyes. Amara opened the folder. She may not have known the inner workings of a criminal organization, but she understood betrayal. She spent her days poring over the documents, looking for patterns, for anything out of place. What she found was a web of deceit. Kwon had been systematically funneling money into offshore accounts for months. He was planning to take over. Amara told Jean one evening, spreading the evidence across his desk. The ambush was just the final step. He thought you were gone, and he could consolidate his power before anyone realized what was happening. But I ran into you instead, Jean said softly. And you gave me the means to get back on my feet and start fighting back faster than he expected. We have enough to expose him to the other captains, Min-jun said, joining them. More than enough, Amara agreed. Jean picked up his phone. Then, let's end this. The downfall of Kwon was swift and brutal. With the evidence Amara had uncovered, Jean rallied his loyal followers and retook control of his organization. In the aftermath, the atmosphere in the headquarters shifted. The tension was gone, replaced by a renewed sense of loyalty to their mafia boss. And in the midst of it all, Amara had found her place. She was no longer just an outsider. She was a valued member of Jin's inner circle. People sought her counsel, respected her insights. For the first time in a long time, Amara felt like she was in control of her own destiny. "Mommy, is Jean coming to my game?" Kai asked, bouncing with excitement in his new soccer uniform. "I don't know, sweetheart," Amara said. "He's a very busy man." But as they arrived at the field, she saw him jogging across the parking lot, dressed in casual clothes, looking nothing like the formidable Korean Mafia boss who commanded a criminal empire. Kai shrieked with joy and ran to him. Jean scooped him up in a hug. "Of course I came," he said. "I promised, didn't I?" They sat together on the bleachers, Jean cheering louder than any other parent when Kai scored a goal. Afterward, they got ice cream and walked through the park. "He's an amazing kid," Jean said. "You're doing an incredible job with him." "I'm trying," Amara replied. Jean was quiet for a moment. "I grew up with nothing," he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "I built my empire, so I would never be powerless again. But watching you two, I think maybe I've been missing the point." "What do you mean?" "Power means nothing if you're alone," he said. "You have something I've been chasing my whole life. You have a family, love, a purpose beyond profits and territories." Amara's heart hammered in her chest. The lines between them had been blurring for weeks. Dinners after work, helping Kai with his homework, Sunday mornings spent at their tiny apartment. Kai had started drawing pictures of the three of them, and Amara, to her terror, had fallen in love with him. Completely, irreversibly in love with a powerful Mafia boss. She couldn't risk it, couldn't risk her heart or Kai's. But every time Jean smiled at her, every time he looked at Kai with such gentle affection, she felt herself drowning. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Kai drew another picture of their little family, with "My family" written in wobbly letters at the top. That night, after Kai was asleep, Amara sat in the dark, staring at the drawing. She couldn't keep pretending. She had to tell Jean the truth, even if it meant losing everything. Saturday's game was against their biggest rivals. Jean arrived early with a poster he'd made with Kai's jersey number on it. He and Amara watched from the bleachers, the comfortable silence between them charged with unspoken emotions. When Kai scored the winning goal, Jean grabbed Amara's arm, his face alight with pure joy. In that moment, looking at him, she knew she couldn't keep her feelings inside any longer. After the game, while Kai was celebrating with his team, Amara turned to Jean. "I need to tell you something," she said, her hands trembling. "And I need you to just listen." She took a deep breath. "I'm in love with you. I know I shouldn't be. I know who you are, what you do, and that this is probably the craziest thing I could ever say. But I can't keep pretending. Kai draws pictures of us as a family, and my heart breaks a little more each time because I want it so badly it hurts." The silence stretched between them. "I understand if this changes everything," she continued, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll do whatever you want. I just couldn't keep lying to you." "Are you finished?" he finally asked. She nodded, unable to speak. He stepped closer. "Good. Because I've been waiting for 2 months for you to say that." "What?" "Amara, you are the most frustrating woman I have ever met," he said, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Do you think I come to every soccer game for just anyone? Do you think I spend my Sundays in your tiny apartment drinking bad coffee because I'm being charitable? I've been in love with you since the day you handed me your last dollar at that bus stop. Since you looked at me like I was a person who mattered, not just a Mafia boss. You love me?" "Yes, you idiot," he said, a sound that was half laugh, half sob escaping his lips. "I love you. I love Kai. I love the way you're kind even when the world has given you every reason not to be." And then he kissed her, right there on the bleachers. He kissed her with a passion and a tenderness that left her breathless. It was a kiss that promised second chances and a future she had never dared to dream of. When they finally broke apart, Kai was standing a few feet away, his mouth hanging open. "Does this mean Jean is my new dad?" Jean laughed, a deep, rich sound that filled Amara's heart. "How about we start with boyfriend and see how it goes," he said, pulling Kai into a hug. A month later, they were in the park, and Kai had made a crown of wildflowers for Amara. As she placed it on her head, laughing, Jean got down on one knee. "I don't have a ring yet," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I know this is fast, but I've lost enough time in my life. I don't want to lose any more. Amara, will you marry us? Us? She whispered, her eyes filling with tears.
He nodded seriously.
We're a package deal. Yes, she cried, laughing through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you. Both of you. The wedding was small and private, held in the beautiful garden of Jin's estate. Kai was the ring bearer, his face a mask of intense concentration. As Amara walked towards Jin, she thought of that night at the bus stop, when she had given a stranger her last $18. She had thought she was giving away everything she had, but in reality, he had been the one giving her everything, a future, a family, a life filled with a love she never thought possible. You okay? Jean whispered as she reached him. I'm perfect, she said. And for the first time in a very long time, she meant it. 6 months later, they were walking through that same park, the evening sun casting a golden glow over everything. Kai ran ahead, chasing butterflies, his laughter echoing through the trees. You know, Amara said, leaning her head on Jin's shoulder, if you hadn't been ambushed that night, we never would have met. I'm not giving Quan credit for this, Jean said, pulling her closer. I'm just saying, she murmured. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead to the very best things. Kai ran back to them, his face bright with excitement. Can we get pizza? He asked, grabbing both of their hands. As they walked towards the car, a normal family on a normal evening, Amara reflected on how a single act of kindness had changed everything. Sometimes, giving someone your last dollar can bring you a fortune beyond your wildest dreams. And sometimes, at your lowest point, you find that your story isn't over. It's just beginning.